The Skyd 2012 College Tour, presented by Spin Ultimate.
Here we are again, UCF versus Pittsburgh in the championship game of Florida's tournament, Tampa, Florida. Warm-up of Florida affair. UCF, the surprise of the tournament, coming through the semifinals, beating Wisconsin, Pittsburgh beating Georgia earlier in the day to get to this point. UCF, again, the surprise, nobody expecting them to be here. If anybody was expecting a Southeast team to make it, it would have been Florida at this point, but so far we have the surprise, and we have UCF coming out of Zack.
This offensive line, we have Alex Bullock, Matt Carlson, Matt Nations, Quint Wharton, Misha Freistadter, Kyle Bettis, and John Best. Look for the deep shot to Freistadter.
Puck goes up, coming down the middle of the field. Fielded by Central Florida. Center to Nations. Pittsburgh coming out. Bump immediately on the mark. Foul called by Nations. Vertical stack here for Central Florida.
Kuntz trying to intimidate early. Jason Kuntz on the mark.
Nations looking around as play restarts. Can't find anybody. Pittsburgh playing tight defense. Throws to space. Overthrown. Early turn for Pittsburgh. Kaufman picking it up, dishing to Thorne. Thorne putting out to space. Kaufman goes to the layout grab. Can't make the catch. Quick turn of events there.
Bettis picking up the disc. About to be marked by Julian Hausman.
Bettis coming up now on the cone on the left end zone. Bettis looking up the field for Freistadter underneath. Finds him, but big D by Tyler Girolamo. Picked up immediately by Hausman. Dish to the Girolamo, out to space. Girolamo reels it in for the 1-0 break.
Tyler DeGirolamo getting the early bookends. Pitt looking to intimidate early. Some very physical defense, some quick transition O, and the spike big sending an early message to this Central Florida team.
Girolamo matched up on Freistadter. Usually we see Girolamo on offense. Zack, it looks like Pittsburgh's well rested. Do you expect to see Girolamo and Alex Thorne playing a lot of points today, regardless on the side of the disc they're on?
I would say later in the game, I would expect to see them more often. I think coming out on offense early, they were clearly trying to send a message to Central Florida. Here now for this second defensive point, we're seeing a more normal defensive line with the same players that have been playing D all tournament long. Pittsburgh was trying to break for the first point of the game, and they were successful. Central Florida is new. Central Florida is new to this area, this level of play. Pittsburgh giving them a little bit of welcome. Welcome to the big boys. Welcome to the finals.
Turning point for Pittsburgh may have been their loss to cut. We saw Zack Kaufman leading sprints after that game on Saturday, firing this Pittsburgh team up, and it looks like they're focused and ready to go.
Absolutely.
Right now we have Colin Connor out anchoring the D-line for Pittsburgh, Julian Hausman, Marcus Dropchow, as well as Joe Bender and Zack Kaufman.
Christian Pitts and Pat Earls as well.
Two freshman players that have made a big difference so far.
In terms of center handling off the turn, we'll see Hausman in the center, Dropchow on the right side. Or we'll also see Kaufman can center handle as well, so it'll be interesting to see where they place Hausman. Got to get the turn first.
Connor with the pole. Drifting to the left side of the field. Catching the wind, coming down in the middle of the end zone. Pittsburgh D able to set up, no first throw available. Looking for the underneath. Big pressure here by Pittsburgh. Finding number 5 for Central Florida. Up to Freistadter on the right sideline. Freistadter known more for his height call in the play.
Calling the early foul on Hausman. That was a nice first isolation cut by Wharton. A good break by Best to set up the disc on the right-hand sideline with Freistadter.
Play restarts. Hausman matched up with a big-bodied Freistadter. Pushed back to the center of the field. Moved up underneath. Back to Nations, centered now. Finding Nations on the right side of the field. Looking deep for Freistadter, putting it out deep. Hausman giving chase. Jump ball, Freistadter boxing out. Physical contact. Yank it underneath. The Freistadter makes the grab on the second effort and ties it at 1 for UCF.
Freistadter not shying away from the contact. Plays jump ball with them. And boxing out Christian Pitts and Julian Hausman, making the second effort goal. That's a 1-1 Tie game. It was a good shot from Nations. I'll take that 50-50 any day.
Leading UCF here, been pivotal to their success, is Coach Andrew Roca. Zach, you got a chance to speak to him at T-Town and see UCF. What do you think? How do you think Andrew Roca has impacted this UCF team?
He could be an emotional leader, and he could be a very calm leader at the same time. Emotional, amping his guys up. He's often in the center of the huddle, motivating them, telling them that they have the right to be there. Their intensity, their physicality will win their games. He preaches defense. Their cheer is what wins games? Defense wins games. That is their mantra, and that has been the case this whole weekend.
D-line from left to right, Matt Reedy, Robert Ballantyne, as well as J.C. Feldman, Mike Hickson, Jacob,
Jeremy Langdon, and Mike Ogren. A lot of people look at this team and they say that Hickson, Nations, or Freystadter would be the best. I was talking to a Georgia Tech player, and they were saying that it was very clear early on that Ogren was the force to be dealt with on this defensive line.
Ogren, forehand pull, caught by Brenner, centered in the middle of the field. Pushed underneath to Girolamo. Alex Thorne streaking deep. Girolamo holsters the hawk, looking for an option, finding Thorne underneath. Alex Thorne faking deep with the forehand, finding Brenner underneath. Girolamo going out to space. Brenner holding that now on the left sideline, working 20 yards outside of the end zone. Back to Isaac Saul. Saul in the center of the field, the distributor here for Pittsburgh. Finding Girolamo on the sideline, pushing them back down the midfield. Finding Kunsa. Alex Thorne on the doorstep, 10 yards out, looking for the break throw. Brother was streaking to the break side, not open. Max Thorne was there. Girolamo back to Saul, trying to work the give and go. Finding Trent Dillon outside the end zone, goes to the ground to make the catch. Thorne finding Kunsa for the goal. 2-1 lead for Pittsburgh.
Very consistent offense there. At the higher level, you find people really looking, the center handler really looking to strike break side, the first in the stack, often creating an easy chance. Trent Dillon had to tumble, roll with it in order to make the play, but they're able to dump it and find Jason Kunsa wide open in the end zone. That's a great point for Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh versus UCF in the finals. Colin Connor with the pull. Drifting left, out of bounds, giving UCF field advantage at the brick mark. Matt Nations taking the disc for UCF. Starting out in an L stack, isolating some cutters underneath. Best available, as well as Freystadter. Freystadter on with Hausman. Going to be a big matchup this game. Nations finding best underneath. Freystadter taking it deep. Hausman's got the inside track. Can he get there? Hausman lays out for the D, giving Pittsburgh another break opportunity.
And that's not the same. If you're going to take a shot to Freystadter, put it up in the air. Don't lead him. He's got speed, and he'll lay out for it. But that's the opportunity that you're going to have for a speedy Pittsburgh defender like Hausman to be able to make the easier play. Put up the jump ball for Freystadter.
Earls with a disc. Looking downfield, looking for the starter. Finds Colin Connor. Experienced playmaker, putting it deep. Backhand looks like it's going to stay out of bounds. Will it come back in? No. UCF will get it in good field position, 20 yards outside the Pitt end zone. That backhand didn't come back in.
Yeah, it was a good attempted shot to Bender. It had to come back in. Bender did have steps. But as you said, never comes back in. 20 yards outside the end zone. This gave Central Florida the chance to work it. But with the physicality of the Pittsburgh defense and the inavailability of the deep shot, Central Florida is going to have to work now, so it's going to be a very interesting point.
Central Florida proving that they can work it down the field in the last game against Wisconsin, winning 15-11 over the Hodags, showing some North Central dominance by UCF, beating Carleton and Wisconsin at this tournament. Play resumes now off of the sideline, looking for Bettis. Back to Bettis. Looking for the underneath cutter. Freystadter and juking in the lane. Swung around to Nations. Nations looking underneath. Nothing much available. Now back to Bettis. Pittsburgh defense pushing them back. They're now near midfield. UCF has nothing available, just dumping and swinging. Now finding Nations up the line. Makes the grab. Hauled in. 25 yards outside the end zone. Freistatter still dancing in the lane. Nation's putting out in space. Hausman gets the D. Pushes up immediately to Kaufman. Over to Dropchild. Kaufman looking for Connor on the swing side. Finds him. Takes forehand. Goes to backhand to Earls. That Earls jacking it deep. Hausman trying to chase it down. Looks like, can he get there? Yes! Another break for Pittsburgh, now leading 3-1 over UCF.
What a great shot by Earls, throwing the outside-in flick bomb to the left-hand side of the end zone. Hausman able to run it down past Freistatter. The Hausman-Freistatter matchup is paying dividends for this Pittsburgh team. With things going the way they are, Pittsburgh facing UCF early yesterday morning. UCF surprises them, brings it to 16-14 Pittsburgh win. But Pittsburgh has played them before, and now it's their second look at Central Florida. And this is where, if you have one look to your offense, if you have one basic guy that you run through, yes, there's a lot of speedy guys, but if your main offense is to hit Freistatter, teams are going to play game plan against that. Hausman playing some great defense early on against Freistatter.
Hausman playing great defense, as you said, and also availability here. Pittsburgh may match up well having Hausman, who is a bigger defender, as well as perhaps Van Ness or even DeGirolamo out in the field. It looks like Pittsburgh has the personnel to match up with this team, Zach.
Absolutely, and it could have been some variability with the wind yesterday. With the conditions completely still, this could have been a totally different game than it was yesterday morning.
So UCF is a surprise for us. Zach, you've been able to see them before. What is there really to know about UCF? How is their offensive style work? What can we expect from them throughout this game?
Well, when I saw them again at T-Town Throwdown, they really dominated with their physicality and their intense defense. They really took Ohio State quickly and early on. Their defensive line really just liked to strike deep. Right now we see two defensive line players with number 11 Michael Hickson and number 23 Daniel Jacob out on the field. Hickson is another big-time player, a little more multi-dimensional than Freistatter, and Jacob, who's a great handler who likes to put it deep.
Ball goes up, centered immediately. Best with the disc. Looking for the underneath cut. Finding Hickson. Jacob with a disc. Looking upfield, a great layout D. I believe Marcus Dropchow giving Pittsburgh the disc. 10 yards outside the goal line. Alex Thorne playing a defensive point. DeGirolamo also in the field. Thorne picking up the disc. Looking for the option. Kaufman going up the line. Now thrown back to Dropchow. Trying to find DeGirolamo on the swing. Finds him around the left side. Still 10 yards outside the end zone. DeGirolamo looking for space. Now forced to dump it to Kaufman. Back to DeGirolamo. Moving it over to Kunsa. Foul on the play. Throws it up anyway. DeGirolamo can't make the catch. Coming back to Kunsa. Kunsa there, a veteran move, calling the foul, trying to get off the throw regardless. Some discussion here on the play, whether or not it was a foul. Going to stay with Kunsa. Play restarts. Kunsa looking for the options. Girolamo in the lane. Now back to Kaufman. Back to Kunsa, give and go. Setting up Kaufman for the upline. It's not there. Instead now find Alex Thorne, and Girolamo's there for the goal, and another break. 4-1, Pittsburgh lead. Last year, Pittsburgh did not win any tournaments, but if they keep rolling like this, Zach, Pittsburgh will start off their 2012 season with a win.
Absolutely, with another great move with this defensive line call here. Without Freistatter out there, we see a great move putting DeGirolamo on Hickson. Hickson again, who is as good of an undercutter as he is a deep cutter. And some tight defense also on Kyle Bettis. Marcus Dropchow putting on Kyle Bettis, gets a great layout D on the underneath. Central Florida has none of the options that they typically had. Wisconsin not playing really tough defense, allowing easy resets. Pitt isn't giving them anything, and that's why there's a 4-1 lead, because the normal options are shut down and they're bailing out to guys like Freistatter.
Looks like we may have a timeout on the field. UCF huddling on the other end. If you're UCF, what adjustments can you make here?
You just gotta keep trying things. You gotta keep mixing it up. You gotta work through your younger players. You gotta take, if you're Freistatter, you gotta get out of the way, draw the hard matchup, get out of the way, and let someone else step in. If you you have 7 guys on that offensive line, 4 of them are cutters in a host stack. If 2 of them are drawing very hard matchups, you 2 have to become the secondary and let the normal guys who are usually secondaries become the primaries and open up this field.
Now, we saw similar scores here in the semifinals, Pittsburgh with a 15-10 win and UCF with a 15-11 win. However, it's a misnomer of how the games went. Wisconsin battling hard throughout that game against UCF, giving UCF a much tougher game. Pittsburgh looks fresh early on in this game.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, first of all, with the format that it was in, Central Florida has played less games than teams like Pittsburgh and Wisconsin. However, Pittsburgh has not played a game before this morning since like 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. They had the rest of the afternoon off. They were able to rest. And the last game that they played, they ran through teams like Georgia and South Florida, allowing their younger guys to play and their older guys to rest. Carleton and Wisconsin had a game at 7 o'clock last night.
Also seeing coming back on the field now, we see Van Ness was able to rest throughout the weekend. Van Ness for Pittsburgh now on the D-line. Unfortunate injury early on in the tournament. Was hoping he'd be able to come back for today. Has been able to do so. Also looking around the tournament, we have some other surprises. Florida not making the bracket after pool play, which was pretty much a shocker. Georgia beating Carleton earlier today in quarterfinals. UCF over Georgia Tech. We have Earls with the disc here for Pittsburgh. Getting ready to bomb it deep. Max Thorne on the line, usually playing offense today. Earls throws it down the middle of the field, caught on the fly. Centered immediately. Best with the disc, looking for Freyshotter underneath. Freyshotter on the line, finding 42 underneath, putting it deep immediately, giving chase. Receivers there. Christian Pitts cannot run it down. And that's a score for UCF.
Quint Wharton.
Quint Wharton, captain of UCF, able to beat his freshman defender, Christian Pitts.
And that was a great under by Mike Ogren, who put it to Quint Wharton. Again, these guys are definitely primary options, but they're not Freystadter, they're not Hickson, they're not Bettis. They are. Quinn is usually one of the primary options, but Ogren stepping in, coming out on this offensive line, and making an immediate effect. Now Pittsburgh has the game plan for everyone instead of just those few primary cutters.
Challenging college ultimate often is to use your entire roster, figuring out how to put your squad at the position to best use their role players and find a role for everyone. Use your depth is vital, especially in a long three-day tournament like this.
Absolutely, and with Pittsburgh, with so much high school experience on with their freshman players, they're able to insert those young guys into big-time situations, and they're able to have an immediate effect. Yes, Christian Pitts gets beat deep there, but he's been playing great all weekend long, and he'll probably continue to play great tonight during this game.
Yeah. Again, we have the D-line out for UCF from left to right. We have Matt Reedy. We have Jeremy Langdon. We have Robert Ballantyne. We have also on the field Mike Hickson. We have Daniel Jacob, Mike Ogren, and J.C. Feldman. Mike Ogren getting set to pull for UCF. Now down 4-2 to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh lets the pull drop. Renner centers to Saul. Coming out in L-stack. Alex Thorne in isolation. Coming in underneath. Beats his man to the disc. Girolamo striking deep. Coming back underneath. Alex Thorne hits him with a high release flick. Next one going to space. Kuntz is wide open, poached, off his man, can't make the play. We'll give UCS a chance at a break here on the cone.
Kuntz is smacking the disc away, not letting Reedy catch it and run it up quickly to the line. Pittsburgh able to set up their defense now. That's a pretty smart move by Kuntz there for just that he wasn't going to be able to catch.
Right now we have an athletic lineup still out in the field for Pittsburgh. Trent Dillon out there, guarding the main isolated cutter. Moving back for Hickson. Hickson throwing a break across the field, picked up by Ogren. Ogren looking back for Jacob, can't find him. Looking underneath, Ogren putting it out to space. Hickson is there. Dillon comes underneath, can't make the D. Hickson puts it out to space. UCF can't make the grab, turnover. Hits this, Dillon picks it up immediately, moving it to Saul. Finding Thorne on the sideline, now on the left sideline near their own end zone. Pittsburgh looking for the dump back, instead finds Saul up the line, puts it deep. Max Thorne is there, can he chase it down? He's beat his man, can he get there? Thorne makes the sliding catch for the goal in the 5-2 Pittsburgh lead.
And that is a big hold after Central Florida almost breaks. Pittsburgh boasting, not getting broken at all at CCC. Central Florida, who they didn't face at CCC, but was at CCC, Pittsburgh almost getting broken there. Very, very close. A drop. If that drops a catch, it's a 5-3 UCF score.
Would have been a 4-3 lead.
Excuse me, you're
UCF
right.
would have been able to get the break back, and all too often watching this tournament, you see those break opportunities are so close for the defense. Converting those are crucial when you're down in the game, and throwaways at the goal line can just be debilitating for any morale on anybody's roster.
And with a team like Pittsburgh, who, in my opinion, when they're playing their small ball offense, looks very, very similar to Carleton, which is why I love that matchup. But they're also very accurate on their deep shots. And that shot from Saul leading to Max Thorne. Max Thorne guarded by a tough defender in Mike Ogren. Thorne is able to get there, slide and make the catch. Great job. And that makes Pittsburgh's, you have to respect everything that Pittsburgh's doing.
D-line out for Pittsburgh. Joe Bender on the left. We have Kaufman, drop chow, Pitts, Earls, Hausman, and Connor. Colin Connor getting set to pull on the right side of the field. Slight breeze picking up here. Partly cloudy now. The sun is out, cooling down on this hot day. Pull goes up, trailing to the left. Might settle down in the left corner of the end zone. Picked up by Central Florida. Pittsburgh able to stop the first throw, nothing available, putting it up to Freistatter. Hausman giving chase. 10 yards outside their end zone on the left sideline. Being forced flick. Putting it deep. Trying to run it down. Colin Connor is there for Pittsburgh. Gets the D.
Nice trail by Colin Connor as Pat Earls gets beat deep by Kyle Bettis.
Pettis did have his man beat. Colin Connor with a help D. Earls now with the disc. 10 yards outside the end zone. Drop chow. Moving it up to Hausman. Hausman looking for Pitts underneath. Not there. Dumps the drop chow. Finding Kaufman up the field. Back to Hausman. Earls. Quick movement here by Pittsburgh in the middle field. Now a strike deep. Wide open player. Pittsburgh. Christian Pitts from afar makes the catch with a 6-2 lead for Pittsburgh over UCF.
And that's a great strike by Pat Earls. I like the Hausman coming out on defense against Freistatter and then handling. He's able to use his quickness, use his agility to get open on the taller Freistatter, who's not able to get his body to move in those directions as quickly.
Freistatter, 6'5", bigger player, coming from a basketball background. Usually playing underneath the basket, he's going to have a little bit of agility, but if you're able to make those quick movements underneath, Freistatter, now used to being a deep receiver, isn't going to quite have the quickness to keep up with Hausman.
Now it's really important for Roca to calm his guys down. Physicality high from Pittsburgh and the momentum all on their side. This game is not even close to over. It's 6-2, it's the first half. This could be a totally different game in a few points. So Roca needs to calm his guys down, tell them to stop worrying about the blatant physicality of Pittsburgh and get them to play their game.
UCF here trying to raise their game, and this is where the lessons are learned for young teams like UCF. You got a couple of wins over North Central. You got wins over good teams. You proved you belong. But here's you're facing a fresh team right now. That's the best team at this tournament. You got to raise your game to compete with these guys.
Absolutely. And late in the tournament, these guys have been playing a lot of points. Pittsburgh having the ability to throw multiple lines as their deep roster is deep.
You see a mixed line out for UCF. Freistatter along with Nations, but also Ogren, Jakub back as well. Wharton on the line with Jeremy Langdon. Daniel Jacob back to receive the pull for UCF. Gets it in the middle of his own end zone. Centers the disc immediately. Best with the disc in the middle of the field. Back to Jacob. Call on the play. UCF coming out in a angled vertical stack in the center of the field. Freistatter in the back. Still discussion here. Now coming back into play. Best with the disc. Being forced forehand on his own goal line. Looking for Nations in the break side. Not available. Jacob with the disc. Putting it deep. Travel call on the play. So if Pittsburgh can get the D, they'll keep it. No, caught by Ogren. Coming back. Play still continues as miscommunication.
So it's a long distance. There's a lot of noise. It's kind of hard to hear everything. Daniel Jacob shifting his left foot when he released. Hausman thinks he's traveling. From what I could tell, it looked like he was traveling before he threw it, as his pivot foot wasn't staying on the ground. I didn't really see much of a travel when he threw it, but then again, I was kind of looking upfield at the moment. So,
my vantage point over here, he took a good 3 steps with his left foot over, getting away from the mark, making it easier forehand to throw. Good call by Hausman.
So count coming in on 3. Trent Dillon on Mike Ogren.
So he puts it deep once again. Deed by Pittsburgh.
DeGirolamo slapping it down and letting his handlers pick up the disc. Another smart move by Pittsburgh.
Thorne picking it up, putting it deep immediately. Kaufman trying to run it down. Defender giving chase. Floating to the back of the end zone. Kaufman has position and catches it for the goal in the 7-2 lead.
Kaufman stepping over in the way of Best as he's running that down, allowing him to box out while still running for the disc. Best unable to ever get position to make a play. Great move by Kaufman. Not only are we seeing physicality, I see a lot of intelligence from this Pittsburgh team. Again, a 7-2 lead in the finals of this tournament. Warm-up of Florida Fair. My name is Zack Smith. I'm here with Bryan Jones of this game with Pittsburgh and Sabah up 7-2 to Central Florida Dogs of War. This tournament, part of Sky's 2012 College Tour presented by Spin Ultimate. We thank you for tuning in to listen with us. If you like what we do, if you like the coverage that we give, please support us. Check out the Sky store, see if there's anything you like, or just let us know that you like what we're doing, and we'll keep giving it to you.
Colin Connor being set to pull now for Pittsburgh. Pole drifting to the left. Looks like this one will settle down in the left side of the end zone, allowing Pittsburgh defense to set up. First throw is off, centered by UCF. Poach defense here by Pittsburgh, a little bit of the 2-2-2-1 we've seen so far, Zach. Moved over immediately, swung around now. Nations with a disc. Swung back to Best. Best looking down the field. Swung around, finding Wharton through the Poach zone. Dumps back, now swung. Best with the disc again. Looking for an option deep, not available. Popping through the zone. UCF still in the middle of the field now near their own end zone. Not able to find many options upfield. This zone for Pittsburgh wreaking havoc early in its possession. Finding Nations along the sideline. Nations fakes the hammer, looking for the swing. Not available here. Real change of pace by Pittsburgh. Foul called on the play.
I'm a more man defense kind of guy. I love this transition, this zone look. Bryan, you're more of a strategist, especially with zones. How would you move against this Pittsburgh 2-2-2-1?
Really got to find the space. It's got to be quick movements here. With a poach zone, you want to have a lot of longer cuts still. And a lot of times people are used to playing against cups, which require finding the space through the cracks. Right now, Pittsburgh, though, is face guarding and moving their defense a lot. So a lot of fakes, a lot of cuts through the cup. And right now, UCF is moving up the field, making it about midfield now. Nations on the right side, and Pittsburgh breaks out of their defense, going to straight man. Best now with the disc, looking back, swinging around the field, fighting Ogren underneath. Forced middle here by Pittsburgh. A flat mark along the sideline. UCF has really been hucking it up the field. Freistatter can't get underneath it, but picked up by Wharton along the sideline, 20 yards outside the end zone. Now to Nations. Flipped over to the right sideline, just outside the end zone. Looking for Best. Best not available. Timeout called by UCF.
Unfortunate as Freistatter breaking free on Colin Connor. Would have been a nice goal opportunity for Alex Bullock, who calls timeout.
Interesting throw there by Pittsburgh. Their defense was being very successful in the last few possessions. Switching it up now and letting UCF be a little bit more patient might have given their offense some confidence, Zach.
It's definitely a possibility, but at the same time, you're shutting them down. Eventually they're going to figure out how to score on your defense. You throw a different look, you confuse them even more. Say UCF didn't score, say you got an early break, they would have been even more frustrated. So yes, they get a little more confidence as they're able to play a little more patient, a little more consistent. But this point has been made tons of times earlier. If you continue to throw that zone, oftentimes that zone takes effect later. You're throwing off their rhythm. You're throwing off the way they run their offense by throwing a zone. And UCF and CCC and earlier this tournament has shown struggles with a zone. So maybe that 2-2-2-1 wasn't the proper call, but I think it worked fine. It caused them to move it more than they normally would in an offensive point.
No team coming out of this tournament so far unscathed. Pittsburgh with 1 loss to Carleton. They're going to be the big winners of this tournament. But looking at the rankings, Zach, what other teams here are really benefiting from this tournament?
I would say a lot of Southeast teams are benefiting from this, especially Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech losing 2 tight games against Central Florida, but winning against Florida and also playing Wisconsin and Carleton tight. I think that's going to look really good for them later in the season.
Yeah, Southeast a big winner in the rankings for this tournament in general. UCF making it to the finals, getting 2 big wins over the North Central region. And Florida being the surprise team, they were the favorite, marked by me, to win the Southeast, and right now, got to reevaluate that scenario. Who do you have coming out of the Southeast if you had to pick right now?
I would pick Central Florida.
Central Florida coming out of the timeout.
I would love to see a Central Florida Georgia Tech final, though.
That would be a great one to watch. Either way, Southeast Regional should prove to be a great tournament to watch when May comes around. We have Alex Bullock with the disc picking it up for Central Florida. We have Ogren in the back of the stack. Nations back as the dump. Kyle Bettis at the front of the stack. An angled vertical stack here across the middle of the end zone for UCF, something we normally don't see anymore. Tapped in Bullock with a disc, Bender on the mark for Pittsburgh. Bullock looking for the option right in front of the end zone. Bettis with the disc on the right sideline, 5 yards outside the end zone, looking for Freistatter isolation. Hausman playing physical D. Freistatter able to get open for the goal. Great moves by Freistatter back and forth, using some of his basketball skills to get open in Hausman.
That's a great way to put it. A great reference to basketball style cutting. Freistatter able to get open in short isolation.
It's interesting there in such a short space for a big man to get open like that. Definitely coming in basketball when you have a lot of times getting that shoulder fake in there, getting the defender to turn his shoulder and find the way to get around him and in front. Freistatter just battled back and forth with Hausman, which has been an interesting matchup so far in this game. And that's a big hold for Florida, or Central Florida, making it a 7-3 lead now for Pittsburgh instead of a halftime 8-2 lead.
Now here's where this is important. Whether or not you break Pittsburgh in this point, because this point is very important, if you make things difficult for Pittsburgh, if you get 1 or 2 really good shots at a D, give a hiccup to this powerful Pittsburgh offensive line, consider that a win for that point. You're not going to be able to stop people every single time you play them, especially an offensive line that's this strong. You really just got to have something look good, for something to give you strength and confidence heading into this halftime.
From left to right, we have the defensive line coming out for Central Florida. We have Best, Langdon, Freistatter, Wharton, as well as J.C. Feldman, Ballantyne, and Michael Hickson. Pull goes up. Short pull, Pittsburgh catching it in front of their end zone. Moving it to Saul, L-Stack, DeGirolamo, first isolated cut. Saul putting it deep. Freistatter and DeGirolamo, 2 big guys going at it. Both go up. DeGirolamo comes down with it just outside the end zone. Foul called on the play. DeGirolamo cannot believe it.
And Freistatter arguing that DeGirolamo did not go straight up.
Zach, what do you think about that play?
It looked like they were bodying for position, that DeGirolamo got to the space first, jumped up. It looked clean to me.
It looked like there may have been some contact in the back, but yes, DeGirolamo, the first one to get there and box him out and get position. Freistatter didn't even go up for it early on. DeGirolamo still trying to fight with Freistatter over the foul call. Looks like it's going to be a contest.
DeGirolamo trying to convince him to take his foul call back. Doesn't look like it's going to happen.
At this point,
Freistatter has a head on DeGirolamo in terms of size.
Freistatter is very large. DeGirolamo, though, athleticism there, making that a great matchup to watch. Looks like it's going back. DeGirolamo. Back giving out, forcing Isaac Saul to do it again. Players getting in position.
Now, a lot of teams would send it deep back to Di Girolamo to kind of shove it in the face. Let's see if Pittsburgh has the poise to not do that and to score in a different way.
Hitting it underneath, Girolamo flipping it immediately to the left side, putting it deep for Alex Thorne, who's running it down. This is for the halftime. Thorne just can't get there, overthrown. Thorne racing back now, as Best runs to the line, calling out the defense. Florida trying to take an advantage, but Pittsburgh getting back easily. Dillon with a late bid, not able to get there on Wharton. Put up the line for Freistatter. Now marked by Kunsa. Freistatter on the right sideline, 20 yards outside his own end zone. Looking for options, can't find anybody. Puts a hammer over the top to the left sideline. Jeremy Langdon bobbles it, hangs onto it, puts it out to space. UCF using the break side for the first time in this game. Michael Hickson with a disc, 10 yards outside the end zone. Swinging it back. Alex Thorne almost there for the D on Best. Best again with the disc. Looking for the break. Can't find it. Dishes it back to Hickson. Hickson marked by Brenner, finding the break throw to space. Pick called on the play.
This is the first time we see Hickson and Freistatter on the same time for a point. This really spreads out the Pittsburgh defensive line having to guard both these guys.
Play restarts. Hickson with the disc. Forehand side in the middle of the field. Move it over, a flick over to number 15 on UCF, back to Best. Vertical stack near the end zone, looking for the break. UCF putting out the space. Big bid by Pittsburgh, can't get there. Langdon with a disc, pivoting around, finding his man, Freistatter, right outside the end zone. Freistatter looking for the easy dish, finds his man, Wharton for the goal.
7-3, and like we said, they get something going.
7-4.
7-4. Excuse me. You get something going, and now you have your first break of the game. You get one of those back, and now that lead looks so much less insurmountable.
Confidence building right there, important for UCF if they're going to come back in this game. Pittsburgh there. Just an overthrow to Alex Thorne. They've been good in their deep shots for most of this tournament. Miscue there, and UCF is able to be patient, working up the field.
I like the Coach Nick Kazmarek of Pittsburgh calling a timeout here. Don't even bother letting UCF try to get another break. You have 2 timeouts per half. This half is 1 point away for Pittsburgh, 1 point away from being halftime. Use your timeouts, calm your guys down. Don't even let them think about that point. Just get them to refocus, put them back, put that same line back there, that powerful offensive line, and just score like you've been able to score all day. Use your dump swing offense, your break side offense. It's been killing all weekend long.
Zack, what would you say then for that team going out there at this point in time to calm them down and get them going for this next point?
I would let them know that they're awesome and that they've been killing all weekend long, and that point wasn't their fault. That was a great shot to Thorne. I would tell Tyler that he skied the pants out of Misha, and we'll see later on if that was a foul or not. But I would let them know that they're good, and that I recognize that they're good, and that if they run their systems, if they run the short dump swing break side system that they typically run, that the other team, whoever is on the other side of the field, won't be able to stand the chance.
Little advice from Barney Stinson there. Just be awesome, Pittsburgh. Offensive line back on the field. Michael Brenner on the left side of the O-line from left to right now. Michael Brenner, Tyler Girolamo, Isaac Saul, Alex Thorne, younger brother Max Thorne, Trent Dillon, and I believe Jason Kunsa on the right side. Trent Dillon and Max Thorne, freshmen from Pittsburgh's YCC Impulse. Five or six freshmen on this team that have played big roles so far, which is incredibly impressive. Pull goes up, Blady pull, caught by Kunsa off the bounce. Move to Saul in the middle of the field, 15 yards outside the end zone, and UCF is showing zone. Bit of a rotational zone here, shifting back and forth. Thorne hammers over the top. Dillon catches it inbounds on the left sideline, falls down on the catch. Back to Thorne, swinging it around the field. Saul to Thorne. Thorne breaking through with a beautiful inside-out flick to Max. Thorne, not a Dillon, 10 yards outside the end zone on the left side of the field, being forced backhand. Dillon finds Saul up the line. Saul dishes to Thorne for the score. And Pittsburgh made that one look easy against the UCF zone.
And that's what happens when you throw a zone in an unwindy scenario.
8-4 halftime lead for Pittsburgh. We're here at the finals of warm-up of Florida Affair in Tampa, Florida. Beautiful day out here. Bit cloudy, slight breeze. This is Bryan Jones, Zack Smith, part of the Sky 2012 College Tour presented by Spin Ultimate. We'll be back. And here we are, starting the second half of the final game between UCF and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh leads 8-4, receiving out of half. I'm Bryan Jones here with Zack Smith. Sky Magazine 2012 College Tour presented by Spin Ultimate. Seen an exciting game so far with Pittsburgh showing their might on offense and defense, Zack.
Yeah, it's been a really big game for Pittsburgh's defensive line so far. Coming out on defense to start, they get a really physical D and quick break to start the game off.
Pull goes up. Jason Kunsa coming down with it. Left sideline. Centering it to Isaac Saul. Vertical stack. Alex Thorne at the front. Break the Thorne immediately. Looking for his brother underneath. Not available. Back to Saul. Brenner streaking deep. Now finding Kunsa up the line at midfield. Kunsa with power position putting up for Brenner. Freistadter giving chase. Freistadter gets a D on it. Gets a hand on it for the D. UCF gets a break chance right out of half.
It's interesting how Pittsburgh is still only going for the deep shot here. I think when they're running their break side, short offense, they're very unstoppable. Maybe they're just trying to show that they could score on the big Central Florida players. I think that's an unnecessary boast, if that is the case. So here we are as Central Florida gets a chance at a 8-5 break.
Kuntz's hawk did hang high in the air, allowing Freistadter to play help D, getting over Michael Brenner to get a hand on it. Central Florida coming out in a vertical stack. Freistadter in the middle of it. Big receiver, marked up with the Girolamo. Big matchup there, height versus height. Play starts now. Moved back towards the end zone. Daniel Jacob with the disc.
Daniel Jacob will try to really enforce the disc space rule by stepping over and drawing fouls a lot. So look for that.
Play restarts now. Jacob with the disc, showing his forehand out to space. Moving it over to Hickson. Hickson putting out deep immediately. Trying to run down to Girolamo, giving chase. Can't get there in time. Ogren getting it 10 yards outside the end zone. Switches up, puts a hammer up to Freistadter. Max Thorne giving chase. Mismatch here, and Freistadter comes down with it. But it looks like he may have pulled his hammy in the process. Freistadter clutching his left hamstring. 8-5 lead for Pittsburgh. UCF breaks right out of half.
Big break for Central Florida there, as they really need to get some motivation, get some things going their way. Hopefully for Central Florida, Freistadter's hamstring could be stretched out and that'll be okay. That was a great look by Hickson out to Ogren, and then Ogren quickly to Freistadter for the 8-5 goal.
Be a big loss if Freistadter did indeed injure his hamstring. Andrew Roca, coach of UCF, urging on his team. Let's go. Defensive line out in the field now for UCF, changing things up. Ogren, Hickson, Langdon, Valentine, Feldman, Bettis, and Wharton. Bettis and Wharton, the two captains of UCF, dogs of war. Ogren with the disc in his hands, getting set to pull. Offensive line out for Pittsburgh. Trent Dillon, Max Thorne, Alex Thorne, Tyler Girolamo, Isaac Saul, Michael Brenner, and Jason Kunsa. Forehand pull from Ogren, hanging in the air, drifting from right to left. Coming down in the middle of the field. Centered to Isaac Saul, not a Brenner. Moved up to the Girolamo. Thorne coming in underneath. Girolamo hitting Thorne. Brother streaking deep. Brother connection. Max Thorne is there. Hops into the end zone for the score, and the 9-5 lead for Pittsburgh.
And there you go, as Pittsburgh still working their deep game, stretching the field out, but this time leading the receiver instead of putting it up for the 50-50. There are very few people who could stick with the Thorns in a dead sprint.
We have a little bit of relatives going on here. The two Thorns as well, cousin Christian Pitts. Pittsburgh having a powerful family so far throughout making plays in this tournament. Eli now stepping out on the field for Pittsburgh. Joe Bender, Zach Kaufman, captain of Pittsburgh. Julian Hausman, Christian Pitts, Marcus Dropchow, Pat Earls, and Colin Connor.
Sun coming back out, adding a little bit of heat and humidity to this day that had, up until this point, cooled down. Central Florida coming up big against competition, especially against the North Central. Taking down Carleton in pool play and then Wisconsin in semifinals. And they are definitely competing with the big boys here.
said we had timeout on the field. Defensive line for Pittsburgh was heading off to try to find some shade with the sun coming back out. Definitely, you can feel the heat difference with the clouds not blocking. It's much cooler a few minutes ago. Should this game continue on, could mean a lot for cramping players.
Central Florida, obviously, with the advantage in that instance, being from around this area. So here we are as Colin Connor gets at the pole. We're also seeing Pat Earls, Julian Hausman, Marcus Dropshow, Christian Pitts, Captain Zack Kaufman, and the young Joe Bender.
Connor set the pole. Pittsburgh giving out their last assignments. Connor with a backhand. Down the middle of the field, lofty, giving Pittsburgh's defense time to set up. Freistatter is back out in the field, setting up to the back of the stack. Matchup with Hausman. Undercut to Freistatter. Looking for Wharton underneath, not there. Pushing it back to Bettis. Back to Bettis down the center of the field. Vertical stack. Freistatter hanging out in the back. Up to Wharton. Just on the right sideline. Now finding Freistatter underneath. Hausman giving him the in-cuts. Freistatter with a big fake. Hausman jumping up in the air. On the right sideline, midfield. Freistatter with very little options, pushing it back. Who's handler? Looking for Wharton underneath, not available. Bettis with the disc in the middle of the field. Flat mark with forehand force for Pittsburgh. Kaufman now marking the man in the middle of the field, finding Freistatter underneath. Looking for Wharton underneath. Freistatter speaking up the line. Freistatter's there. Hausman giving chase. Can't get there. Freistatter, Miska Freistatter with the goal, making it a 9-6 lead for Pittsburgh.
Freistatter with a great run, getting the up line. Good to see. It's oftentimes a good idea to have your big guys in the back throwing that dish to the side and then cutting up line, as their size will be too much to deal with as they cut up line.
Central Florida being real patient there, not looking for the deep shot immediately and taking the underneath that Pittsburgh was giving. Clearly, Freistatter has the respect of the Pittsburgh defenders when he's able to go to the break side and come underneath unchallenged. Early on in this game, it was a 7-2 lead for Pittsburgh that's now turned into a 9-6 lead. Very different story. UCF gaining a little bit of confidence, now putting out their D-line on the field. We're looking at John Best from left to right on the D-line, as well as Matt Reedy, Robert Ballantyne, Jeremy Langdon, Daniel Jacob, Mike Ogren, and Michael Hickson in the middle, number 11. Ogren has been employing the use of flip poles throughout this game. Pittsburgh's offense has to come out here and continue to hold this lead. A break here would be really shift the momentum towards UCF's side. Right now just hanging tough.
Again, Central Florida able to get 2 breaks so far this game, one in the first half, the second to start the second half as the pole goes up.
Centered now by Brenner. Odakunsa. Finding Girolamo underneath, dishing it to Thorne on the right side, faking hammer. Back to Kunsa. Finding Dillon underneath. Dillon drops the ball. UCF's disc in the middle of the field, just past the half field line. Now Reedy picking up the disc. Forehand force. In the chaos, finding an underneath cutter. Hickson moved up to Langdon, just outside the end zone now. UCF looking for the big break. Backhand force back to Hickson. Now establishing a forehand force on the goal line, trapping against the sideline. Jams it into space. Injury called in the play, foul. Matt Reedy involved in the collision, clutching his arm. Disc was on the ground. Not sure where this one's going to end up.
Pretty sure he caught it and put it on the ground after the fact. He definitely got hit pretty hard. It looks like by Tyler DeGirolamo as DeGirolamo tried to make the play on the disc. Interestingly enough, the play started, you saw how Brenner was unable to center the disc to Saul. Saul streaks upfield and tries to cut deep and create space for Thorne when Thorne gets the disc. And you got to wonder if the fact that Kunsa had to take responsibilities in the center, if that led to the fact that the throw to Dillon was a little off. It wasn't their main distributor in the center of the field.
Throw was behind Trent Dillon. Trent Dillon usually taking his cut to the middle of the field and then going to the break side, curling off. As soon as he started that curl, had the stutter step to stay with the disc. Just couldn't make the catch coming back to it on the right sideline. Excuse me, from the right side of the field.
Matt Reedy getting up under his own power, still clutching his arm, but it's good to see that he's all right enough to walk off the field. Kyle Bettis coming on in his place. UCF retaining possession.
Kyle Bettis has been a real strong player for UCF so far. What does he mean for this defense and offense, Zach?
He applies a lot of consistency. He's a really good guy to have holding the disc. Makes a lot of really good decisions for them.
Play restarts. Bettis looking for Hickson at the line. It's not there. Now finds Hickson after doing a stutter step, comes back to the play, fooling Brenner, and that's a gigantic break for UCF. Now only down 9-7. Pittsburgh still in the lead by 2. UCF has to be gaining confidence off of this.
Absolutely, and you got to wonder how much that halftime helped them out. You know, the ability to reassess for a long period of time, to chill out, calm down, come in and break to start. They've gotten 2 breaks this half. As Pittsburgh is still up 9-7. It still has the potential to be a 3-point lead if Pittsburgh can hold, but Central Florida is holding, scoring 2 out of 3 points so far this half.
We're seeing the offensive line for Pittsburgh discuss after that point. Looks like there were some miscommunications. Still have to like the matchups here of the way the players have been playing overall throughout the entire tournament. Going through the freshmen across in Pittsburgh, we have Max Thorne, Trent Dillon, Joe Bender, Pat Earls, Christian Pitts, and also another freshman from YCC Impulse on the squad. It seems like it's going to be a Freshman of the Year candidate between Pat Earls, Trent Dillon, Max Thorne, Joe Bender. Zach, who do you like in that matchup?
I like Max Thorne. I think he has the most effect immediately for this team. I think he's proved to play the best out of all of them. He's just a constant player on this offensive line for Pittsburgh.
Pull goes up, coming down sharp in front of Kunsa. Picking it up, centering it to Saul. UCF coming out in man defense. Horizontal stack for Pittsburgh. Dish to Brenner on the sideline, now to Max Thorne. Moving it incredibly quickly. Thorne in the middle of the field. At that past half field, now 20 yards outside the end zone. Kunsa with the disc in the middle. Looking back for Saul, finds him in the backhand dump, puts out an IO break to space to Brenner. Over to Thorne, just outside the end zone. Thorne looking for the one shot. Looking for the swing now to Isaac Saul in the center of the field, finds him. Saul looking for the dump, battling back now, give and go with Kunsa. Stagnation from the cutters. Kunsa, though, finding Girolamo in space. Girolamo picks it up. Pick called on the play. Going back to Jason Kunsa. Great movement by Pitt up the field. Lightning quick, finding breaks without a problem. Defense getting set for UCF. Vertical stack by Pittsburgh. Play restarts. Fake to the backhand side. Now pivoting back and forth. Looking for Saul on the force side. Marked forehand. Hammer over the top to Max Thorne, who's wide open for the goal. And the 10-7 hold for Pittsburgh.
And this is what we're talking about with Pittsburgh's patient offense. Patient in the sense of they're not taking a lot of deep shots, but really powerful in the sense that you were having a hard time keeping up at one point with how quickly they were moving the disc.
Yeah, at that point, when you're dishing the disc without even holding it for a stall count, and you have the timing to do that in your offense, that's a sign of a well-structured offense, right, Zach?
Absolutely. It's also a sign of a lot of experienced players. Pittsburgh, even their youth, can see the field very well, know what they're doing. And you said this earlier, I think on Friday, you were saying in order to get on the A team for Pittsburgh, if you're a freshman, you better have some high school experience. All these guys playing not only in high school, but on youth club teams, these guys can see things that most college freshmen can't, and that's why they're able to have an immediate impact on this team. The fact that there's 6 or 7 of them means that there's just 6 or 7 young players that are going to bring this Pittsburgh team to greatness year after year after year.
We have the offensive line now come out for UCF. We have Alex Bullock on the field, as well as John Best. Matt Nations, number 43, big play handler for UCF. Crux of their offense. Miska Freistadter out on the field as well. Number 17, Matt Carlson, Kyle Bettis, and Quint Wharton. Kyle Bettis and Quint Wharton, again, the captains for UCF. Ready for the pull. Tyler Kunsa with the pull. Short pull picked up by Wharton. Bettis in the middle of the field, unmarked. Defender finally getting down to him. Tyler Kunsa on the mark. Forehand force, horizontal stack. Looking for the break. Immediately finding Wharton. Wharton looking back for Bettis. Bettis follows it. Turnover. Kunsa picking up the disc. Tyler Kunsa right on the goal line. Looking for Mick Van Ness just outside the goal. 2 yards right there. Kunsa juking in the lane. Can't find him. Looking back for number 19. 19 on the left sideline. Breaking across to Balovic. Balovic finding Van Ness underneath. Marked by Nations. Forehand force. 15 yards outside the end zone. Shooting front number 87 with the goal. 87 for Pittsburgh. Makes it an 11-7 lead, and that's a break for Pittsburgh.
Keep aware that some of these guys aren't wearing Pittsburgh jerseys. A lot of these guys are freshmen, so we're not really sure the name of the player who just scored. But it was a great cut. He broke free in the front of the stack, beat his guy to the cone. Van Ness able to hit him, and that was a great move as Pittsburgh breaks 11-7.
Coming down the previous possession for Pittsburgh, the offense was coming down, and they looked a little bit like they were getting on each other's cases. They were discussing things. Because oftentimes you want to just let the offense play and do their thing. There, Pittsburgh shows a lot of forethought in putting out their freshmen, younger players on the field, the D-line, to get experience in these games. Even though UCF was on a run there and could have come out and made it a 10-8 game, now it's 11-7. They trust their guys, and the guys got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I was going to say this before whether or not that turnover happened. The offense of UCF is kick-started with Quinn Wharton making an in-cut and then a strong break side horizontal cut. Wharton's got a big effect on this team. He's the initiator of this offense, and Pittsburgh throwing out a very strong defensive line here. We have Van Ness, Tyler DeGirolamo, Jason Kunsa, Colin Connor, Alex Thorne, and Trent Dillon. This is a really, really strong line. A lot of offensive players out here.
Alex Thorne with the pull, backhand, going from left to right. Caught in the end zone by Bettis. Moved up to Best, John Best. Moving it over to the center of the field. Moving upfield, Bullock with the disc. Finding Freystadter underneath. Up to Ogren. Big bid by Pittsburgh, can't get it. Ogren putting it out to space. Alex Thorne giving chase. Both players are there boxing out. And Quint Wharton comes down with it for the goal and the 11-8 score. Pittsburgh still leading.
Wharton and Thorne bodying for position. Wharton able to keep the shorter Thorne behind him, go up and make the grab. Great job by Wharton, getting a very key goal. Ogren trusting his receiver, putting it to space, and after that showcase, if you're going to have Wharton versus Thorne, you might want to take that shot all the time.
Alex Thorne, very fast, just going to have issues with anybody much taller. Thorne, despite his size, is an incredible offensive talent. Again, we have an 11-8 lead for Pittsburgh, still in control of this game, but UCF battling back from an early 7-2 deficit. If they're able to go on a run, they're still within striking distance.
That break is very important at the same time for Pittsburgh, as getting one of the two back that UCF was able to get. Now if you're able to score, you're able to take a 4-point lead, 12-8 in this game to 15. And if you're UCF, it's time to start playing tight. And it looks like they're playing tight again, showing Hickson and Freystadter on the field, along with Reedy, who's back on the field, which is awesome, and Mike Ogren, who continues to be a solid defensive presence for this Central Florida defensive line.
Mike Ogren getting props from other teams for being one of their better defenders. Ogren, a flick pull, waiting now, going to come up short. Pittsburgh will stop the roll. Kunsa stops it, centers it to Saul. Isolated stack here. Alex Thorne going deep. Saul putting out the space, and Alex Thorne has this. But he can't run it down. It looked like that disc, if it had a little bit more trajectory on it out in front, Thorne would have had an easy goal. Reedy now picking up the disc on the goal line in the middle of the field for Central Florida. Looking for any options, nothing available yet. Now looking back, finding Langdon. Reedy with the disc. Matt Reedy being forced forehand. Vertical stack. No cuts coming. Trent Dillon hard on the dump. Dillon shutting down his man. Hammer over the top to space. Freystadter comes down with it. Girolamo on Freystadter. Pushing up the field to Michael Hickson. Putting it deep. Defenders giving chase. Isaac Saul is there. Can't make the defense.
And that's a break.
It looks like Jeremy Langdon with the... Now it's trying to figure out who came up with that grab. Nonetheless, that's a break for
Robert Ballantyne.
Robert Valentine coming down. That's a break, an 11-9 lead now for Pittsburgh. As you said, Zach, UCF there having to come out on defense with their studs, tightening up here, and they were able to take advantage of a Pittsburgh miscue.
And one of the things that I know, UCF getting to trouble early, as Matt Reedy not willing to pivot over and try the break side throw to Mike Hickson, who was wide open, no defender near him. They were able to work it. He got into a high stall situation, threw up the hammer. Freistadter coming over, making sure the grab is made, and they're able to pull through as Hickson hitting Valentine deep for that 11-9 break.
Interesting there. Pittsburgh taking the shot initially. Thorne was open. Isaac Saul not able to hit him. If you're Pittsburgh, what do you come out and do on this offensive possession?
You don't change anything. These guys are they're seven. They're the seven best. Seven at these positions. I would say that there may be some better players, but this is their seven. This is their line, and they're intelligent enough. They're smart enough to know what they should take and what they shouldn't take. Isaac Saul is one of the best handlers in that region, possibly one of the best handlers in the country. You trust him, and with Alex Thorne going deep, yes, if that had a little more flow to it, Alex Thorne was getting to that no problem. It bladed down. So I would want them to run their shorter ball, but if the deep shot's there, I would hope they would take it.
11-line lead for Pittsburgh. Pole goes up, blades down, center into Saul in the middle of the field, 10 yards outside his own end zone. Flick over to Girolamo. Girolamo faking over to Thorne on the flick side, being forced, trapped against the sideline. Thorne says no problem, breaks over to Kunsa, over to Saul, moving it around now to Dylan. Dylan, the freshman, on the left-hand sideline, being forced flick still. Saul with the disc. Dump swing for Pittsburgh, trying to look for the underneath cut. Finds Thorne underneath with a flick. Quick backhand over and turnover there. Big D by, looks like Michael Hickson.
Misha Freistadter.
Freistadter makes the D. Putting out the space immediately. Bad decision by UCF, a foul call in the play.
It's a good choice by Hickson to try to put that out to space, knowing that he'd probably draw the foul as he does. If it goes through, Misha's streaking deep and he had steps, so that would have been a great break. As this gets tapped back in.
Play begins now. Looking deep immediately. Hickson is there running it down. Two defenders in the area. And a D for Kunsa catching it. Hickson unable to get to the area. Big foot block by Michael Hickson. Foul call on the play. Hickson was tight on the mark. Was that a foul, Zach?
I don't know. Kunsa arguing that while his foot hit the disc, Kunsa's back was pushed forward by Hickson's hand.
Hickson really wanting that D.
Bryan, you're an observer on this one. What does that sound like to you, given that explanation?
What Kunsa's telling me is that the hand's on the back, and as an observer, you have to let the person calling the foul tell you what the foul was on. There was contact there by Hickson's hand and the body pushing Kunsa over when Hickson allowing Hickson to get the foot block. I think it should stay with Kunsa. Overthrow though, immediately off of the restart, giving UCF the disc 25 yards outside of the end zone. Play moved up, restarted now. Big opportunity here, center of the field, looking, no cuts developing. Over to Bettis. Bettis breaking over to Feldman. Feldman with the disc still on the right sideline. Flat mark by Max Thorne. Looking back, high stall count. Putting up a hammer. Freistadter in the area. Kunsa there. Freistadter goes up with one hand. Can't get a hold of it.
Hickson and Freistadter collide with one another, causing them both to drop it.
Saul with the disc moving over to Thorne. Alex Thorne now on his own goal line. Flick force in the middle of the field. Looking for Benner. Big layout by UCF. Can't get there. Wharton with the layout. Hickson now pushes into Kunsa. Throw goes up, going deep. Dylan is there. Dylan can't make the grab. It looks like this one's coming back. No foul by Kunsa, giving UCF the disc. Freistadter is poached deep, but UCF is going up to the line. The score right now is 11-9. Pittsburgh leads.
11-9 Pittsburgh.
Disc goes up immediately. Freistadter giving chase to Girolamo there as well. Girolamo gets in front. Freistadter showing some fatigue. Couldn't quite get there. Girolamo having the freshness to get out in front.
Sidelines for Pittsburgh telling Tyler Girolamo to run Misha Freistadter, trying to tire him out even more than he is. Freistadter playing a lot of points.
Isaac Saul waving to the camera, picking up the disc. Play now restarts. I saw his own goal line. Looking at Tyler Girolamo. Over to Kunsa. Quick dish to Thorne on the left sideline now. Being flat mark. Forced forehand. Now switch over to backhand. Thorne takes advantage. Pushes it up to Dylan. Dylan on the left sideline. All on the play. Violation called. Some confusion in what's going on. Trent Dillon on the left sideline. Past midfield. Everybody going back into position. Play about to restart. Coming in on 2. Play restarts. Dylan looking for an option. Can't find anybody. Now finds Kunsa in the middle of the field. Kunsa looking for the backhand. Finds Max Thorne underneath. Still in the middle of the field. Flick over to his brother Alex. Alex in the right sideline. Fakes a big backhand. Pushes up a forehand to Kunsa. Kunsa pivoting back and forth, trying to find a man. Max Thorne was open for the up line, couldn't find him. Inside out break to Brenner, just on the goal line now for Pittsburgh. Just for the score to Isaac Saul. Spikes it down, and that's a 12-9 Pittsburgh lead.
The best thing that Central Florida can take away from that is that Pittsburgh isn't scoring on their first try anymore. They're getting them to turn it by putting up their best players out here on defense. The issue with that is it's only 12-9. This game has the potential for a lot more points, and if you're playing your top guys on defense, they're going to be tired for offense. It is 12-9. Pittsburgh up on Central Florida as Coach Andrew Roca takes a timeout, give his guys some rest.
And how everybody got here. UCF beating Wisconsin in the semifinal 15-11. Pittsburgh beating Georgia 15-10. Georgia coming off of a surprise quarterfinal victory over Carleton, which we did not expect. Zach, you were watching that game. What was the difference between Georgia and Carleton?
I think it had a lot to do with energy. I don't think Carleton wanted to play that game. I don't think they wanted to be in that situation. I think they wanted to beat Wisconsin last night and get that bye to the semifinals. Carleton has had a lot of injuries. Nick Stewart wasn't playing. Simon Montague had to step out due to injury. Mike Clark wasn't playing, and they already sent a weekend roster that was missing some top guys like Jonah Herskew. So they were run down. They had basically already played a tournament, playing 7 games before today. So Georgia was able to take advantage with a deeper roster and some fresher legs. And Elliot Erickson had a great game.
UCF coming out of it, also beating Georgia Tech in the quarterfinals 15-13. Beating Georgia Tech twice this tournament by similar scores. Florida, the surprise loser with USF out of the bracket, had a cool play. We have the offensive line out in the field for UCF. Alex Bullock, Quinn Wharton, Misa Freistadter,
Matt Nations, Kyle Bettis, John Best, and Matt Carlson.
Pull goes up, Kyle Bettis taking it on the left side of the field, fielding it in his own end zone. Pushing it up immediately to John Best. Over to Bullock. Bullock on the right side of the field being forced flick. Hausman coming in underneath on Freistadter. Freistadter gets the underneath. Hausman stripping Freistadter of the disc. Without calling the play.
Uncontested foul. Hausman knows he strips Freistadter.
Hausman being very physical on the mark, letting Freistadter get the underneath, not letting him go deep, forcing him to rely on his throws. Freistadter looking back now. Finds Bettis. Hit called on the play. Looks like it's coming back to Bettis. Even John Best in the middle of the field. Kyle Bettis now with the disc.
I don't know if it was the long offensive points by Pittsburgh, but I feel like I haven't seen this defensive line in forever.
They have been using DeGirolamo and Thorne on multiple points here. Been able to save them for the finals. Not having too much play time. Plays restart now. Bettis with the disc on the right sideline, being forced forehand. Pushed up to Wharton, back to Bettis on the right sideline. Bettis putting it deep. Carlson streaking. Big D. Colin Connor with a layout D.
But Carlson able to get the second effort layout grab and score. UCF hitting the double digits, 13-10.
Zach Smith, I didn't even see that. I thought Colin Connor got the clean D. And like you said, Matt Carlson streaking to the back of the end zone, staying with it.
12-10.
Getting the great catch. Now UCF staying within 2. This is the time you want to come out and break and make this a 12-11 game. If you're UCF, you've seen the matchup so far. Who do you bring out in the field, and what do you do to try to disrupt Pittsburgh's offense?
You got to bring out Hickson. You got to bring out Ogren. Keep Best on the field. Get some handlers out there. Keep Freystadter on the field. You need the height and the physicality of Hickson and Freystadter, and you need some more handlers out there. You need some more people that are going to move the disc. We have not seen we didn't see Daniel Jacob out on those points. He's one of those guys that has a nice high-release flick huck to put up the space. But from what I can see from this distance, it seems like we're going to keep Best. We're going to see Freystadter, Hickson, Jeremy Langdon, Mike Ogren, and if my eyes don't fail me, that's also Robert Ballantyne. So we do see Best coming on the field. We do see Hickson and Freystadter. So they're making things more. Oh, we also do see Daniel Jacob out there. It looks like. Oh no, excuse me, Matt Reedy.
For Pittsburgh, Brenner, Dillon, Thorne, Max Thorne, Carlo Girolamo, Isaac Saul, Jason Kunsa, and Alex Thorne from left to right. Flick pull from Ogren goes up, blading very short of the end zone. Brenner stopping it. Saul now picking it up. A little bit of confusion there. Moved over to Kunsa. Vertical stack. Finding Thorne at the front. Being forced flick. Thorne faking over to the backhand side. Now on the right sideline just before midfield. Finding Girolamo with an IO break. Girolamo, middle of the field. Back to Thorne. Quick dish over to Saul on the left side. Reversing field. Thorne finding Kunsa underneath. Back to Saul. Give and go. Saul now. IO flick over to Thorne. Back to Saul. Saul running this offense and finding Max Thorne for the goal and the 13-10 lead for Pittsburgh.
One of the things that I was going to say 2 points ago when Pittsburgh eventually held on that UCF long D point, I was going to say I really liked the Misha Freystadter on Isaac Saul choice. Freystadter choosing to be on Kunsa, as Kunsa was getting a lot of touches recently, but Saul is more of a threat in terms of the ability to throw the inside breaks and the around breaks. Kunsa has a very good flick to space, and he's got some very good pivoting, keeping the disc moving, but Saul is the centerpiece of that handling core. I loved seeing Freystadter trying to stop Saul, and Ballantyne just couldn't stick with Saul as Saul ran train that point, and it's a 13-10 lead.
First major tournament of the season, warm-up a Florida affair. We have seen some guys that we can consider for Callahan this year. There's some guys, one guy that people probably have known about from our coverage is Nick Lance for Georgia Tech. He's played great so far in this tournament, helping Georgia Tech play up to opponents. Who else have you seen that you have liked for Callahan here, Zach?
I really like Alex Thorne. He plays some great defense. He's got stellar undercuts. He's really good deep. He does everything right. I really like him there, and I think he deserves the nomination.
Anybody else from Wisconsin or Carleton worth watching for that race as well?
I haven't seen a lot of Wisconsin in terms of individual players. Alex Simmons played a ton of points, and he's a really good handler, and he's played some solid defense. From cut, you got to consider guys like Simon Montague. He played some great defense. He's a sick handler, and he can cut. Julian Childs-Walker had a big effect. I don't know if he looks similar to Grant, but I don't know if he's the Callahan nominee that Grant was.
Colin Connor with the pole drifting to the right sideline here in front of us. John Best letting it go out. We'll take it at the brick mark.
Girolamo also deserving to be in that conversation for sure.
Girolamo, big 6'4" cutter for Pittsburgh, making plays. Tied for the lead in goals at Nationals last year in Boulder, Colorado. Same site of where Pittsburgh will hopefully be going towards the end of this year, and maybe UCF joining them.
If UCF continues to play like this, I see no reason why the Dogs won't be in Boulder.
John Best taking it brick mark. Pittsburgh switching the force immediately after tapping the disc in from forehand to backhand. Pushing up the field to Freystadter. Marked by Hausman now. Freystadter up back to Nations at midfield. Nations on the left sideline. Over to Bettis. Pittsburgh calling the disc down low. Kyle Bettis calling it up. Kyle Bettis responding in anger. Joe Bender coming up to talk to him. Discussing the play, reenacting where and how Kyle Bettis caught the disc.
So I think Bettis reacted the way he did because of Tyler Kunsa's reaction. Joe Bender coming over, explaining his position, and he's arguing with Kyle Bettis, and he's being much more civil about it than Tyler was being.
Kyle Bettis doesn't look like he was going to give up the argument here. Bender going back now, sending it back, contested.
That's fine. Joe Bender's showing some high quality and some calmness bringing that to quick resolution.
Nations now on the left side of the field, just at the midfield line, guarded by drop chow. Nations pivoting around, looking for the deep. Can't find anybody available. Now going to force the bailout huck, putting it to space. Hospital pass to the area. Matt Carlson there. UCF comes down with it. Freystadter, big body, boxes man out. 13-11 lead for Pittsburgh.
Hausman knew that in a 50-50 battle versus Freystadter has the body. He's going to be able to jump up higher. Hausman took a step off, tried to jump early, tried to make a play, couldn't get to it. There's only so much you can do in that kind of situation.
Freystadter, basketball background, ability to box out. Been very impressive so far in opportunities when it is a 50-50 disc.
It is now 13-11 Pittsburgh. Once up 7-2 at half, or 7-2 in the first half. Central Florida able to get a couple breaks back, make this a tighter game. Coming out on offense is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh with Michael Brenner, Trent Dillon, Max Thorne, Alex Thorne, Tyler DeGirolamo, Isaac Saul, and Jason Kunze.
An offensive line out for Pittsburgh, a 13-11 lead. Here in the winning moments, a break here would be huge for UCF. They've been hanging around in this game. And that's what you expect to raise your game and keep pace with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh looking great in the first half, rolling over UCF, who just was not expecting a fresh and Sabah squad. Isaac Saul raising his hand, getting set for the poll. We have Elliot Trotter here doing the filming for Sky Magazine, the Sky College Tour 2012, presented by Spin Ultimate. Bryan Jones here with Zack Smith, beautiful Tampa, Florida. Poll goes up. Coming in towards the middle of the field, picked up by Kunze, caught in the fly, centering to Saul. Horizontal stack here. DeGirolamo underneath. DeGirolamo has to go up for it, makes the grab. Freystadter giving him the mark. Physical mark, called a foul by DeGirolamo calls the foul.
Coming in on 0 with no contest.
Play restarts now. DeGirolamo looking for Thorne underneath. Finds Alex Thorne along the right sideline. Forced forehand, trapped against there. Finding Kunze up the sideline near the end zone. Kunze pivoting back and forth, trying to find Thorne. Putting out the space for Thorne to run to. Thorne gets there for the 14-11 lead. And now Pittsburgh has game point for their defense.
And that was an awesome upline throw to Kunze. The under from DeGirolamo to Thorne was put to space. Jason Kunze running from the right-hand sideline, running through the disc. Alex Thorne putting it out to space, letting him run to it, and then with a nice stutter step head fake, able to go up line, Kunze leading him. Great goal. That's the kind of thing you want to put in front of Thorne. He'll get that every single time. 14-11 Pittsburgh.
UCF here just has to focus on letting their offense do their job and come back on the field to break. Again, a 14-11 lead for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh in this game, to recap things, got out to a 7-2 lead. Everything was working right. Later in the second half now, UCF is able to get breaks on on miscues on Pittsburgh deep shots. Andrew Roca pumping up his squad. Coach Andrew Roca of UCF, an emotional, intelligent coach, knowing when to push the right buttons. We have the line out for UCF. We have Bullock, we have Nations, we have Freystadter, we have Bettis, Wharton, Carlson, and Best.
Coming to you live again, the finals of Warm-Up of Florida Fair in beautiful Tampa, Florida. Tampa giving us nothing but awesome weather these past 2.5 days. We've seen some amazing ultimate from some of the top teams in the country, from one team in particular showing us that they're one of the top teams in the country.
Ball goes up, drifting out of bounds. And John Best will take it at the brick mark. We've seen some topsy-turvy results here. Nobody going undefeated. Top teams losing to teams we didn't expect. Florida not making the bracket. What do you attribute to Wisconsin's and Carleton's losses here? We expected them to be one of those two teams to be in the final, along with Pittsburgh.
There's a lot of things. It has to do with the fact that they played a lot of games over the past 2 days leading up to today, and it also has to do with. I talked to Dave Wiseman, and Wisconsin was being very good about playing a lot of their younger players, getting them experience. So.
Best with the disc now, backhand force. Pittsburgh switching the force in the mark, allowing the cutters to go to the open side freely. DeGirolamo now on Freystadter. Freystadter at midfield, pivoting around, putting it out to space. Finding Wharton Girolamo calling the stall.
There was a great throw by Misha Freistatter, who doesn't usually like to throw his flick. It was definitely a bailout huck attempt to quit Wharton. Girolamo.
Looks like Freistatter is giving up the call. A turnover for Pittsburgh. Stops the play. Players resetting their positions now. Girolamo having to tap the disc in. Game point here, Pittsburgh's defense. Do they take the shot to win the game?
They might. With this line out here, you might. Shoot to Bender. Shoot to Colin Connor. Don't shoot to Girolamo.
Prediction by Zack Smith, Joe Bender for the game-winning goal. Coffin with a disc. IO break over to Kunsa. Kunsa to Van Ness. Van Ness over to Dropchow. Dropchow finding Girolamo wide open for the goal. Tyler Girolamo, game-winning goal for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wins. Warm-up, first tournament of the season, 15-11 over UCF. First tournament win for Pittsburgh, and first tournament win. They didn't get any tournament wins in 2011. That's a big win for Pittsburgh, Zach.
Yeah, going through, beating Wisconsin, beating Florida, beating every other team here except for Carleton. So I'm sure they're excited for their next chance to face cut, hopefully at Stanford or Centex. But great game, really fun to watch, and hell of a fight by a Central Florida team that was playing tough lines throughout the whole tournament.
Zach, I have to give you credit. Before the tournament, I had Wisconsin as my winner. You had Pittsburgh. First day, I was telling you, though, that Pittsburgh seemed like they may have been the best team at this tournament. They were able to go through those, get the bye, not lose those close games. Pittsburgh deserves all the credit in the world at this point in time.
I will give 100% of my prediction credit to Joe Bender's highlight video of CCC. This was Zack Smith and Bryan Jones of Skyd Magazine's No Look Scuba, providing you with some tournament coverage for this 3-day tournament in Tampa, Florida. Warm-up, a Florida affair, Pittsburgh, the tournament winner. We want to thank you for tuning in and staying with us throughout the whole weekend. Please make sure and check us out for the rest of the Sky 2012 College Tour presented by Spin Ultimate.
I'm Bryan Jones. Zack Smith. Thanks for listening.